That one.
Welcome to the podcast where we explore the big questions about space and humanity's future out there. Today, we're tackling something truly epic, what it would take to travel to outer space, make it sustainable for living, and how all of this could transform what we know about the moon. I'm Roman.
And I'm Zach. Joining us today is Aiden, our space enthusiast who's got some fascinating ideas about making life beyond Earth possible. Aiden, let's start with some basics. What are the biggest challenges we face when it comes to traveling to space and actually living there?
So the first big hurdle is getting there in the first place. Right now, space is super expensive. A single rocket launch can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. But with new technology like reusable rockets, companies like SpaceX are working on ways to cut costs and make space travel more accessible. Thinking about it, when rockets can be reused like planes, the prices of going to space could drop drastically.
Reusable rockets are a huge step, but just getting to space isn't enough. Keeping people alive once they're there is the real challenge. You need oxygen, water, food, and a way to manage waste. NASA and other organizations are working on something called closed-loop systems. These systems recycle everything, water, air, and waste, so you can live in a space without constantly needing supplies from Earth.
And food is a big deal too. Right now, astronauts eat packaged meals, but that's not sustainable for long-term living. Growing plants in space could solve that problem. Plants would not only provide food, but also recycle carbon dioxide into oxygen. Scientists are even experimenting with growing crops in the moon's soil to see if it's possible to farm on another world.
Then there's radiation. Space does not have a protective atmosphere like Earth does, so astronauts are exposed to dangerous levels of cosmic rays. Without proper shielding, long-term exposure can lead into cancer and other health problems. That's why researchers are looking into materials for shelters like using the moon soil called regolith. To make thick walls, some people even suggest building habitats underground to stay safe from radiation.
Speaking of habitats, what about using resources that are already on the moon? If we could make tools, buildings, and even air and water from lunar materials, we wouldn't need to send as much stuff from Earth.
That's the idea behind In Situ Resource Utilization, or ISRU. By using what's already there, like 3D printing with regolith, we could build structures and tools directly on the moon. It could save money and make the process much more efficient.
And don't forget about energy. You can't survive without power. The moon doesn't have power lines. Solar energy is probably the best option. The moon poles get sunlight for most of the year, so installing solar panels that can provide a steady source of electricity for habitats and research stations.
These ideas are amazing, but living in space isn't just about the physical challenges. What about the psychological impact? Being isolated, far from family and friends, in a cramped space, it's a lot for anyone to handle.
Exactly. Astronauts on the International Space Station already deal with this, but it would be even harder for people living on the moon or Mars. Scientists are looking at ways to help, like creating virtual reality experiences so astronauts can feel connected to Earth or giving them meaningful work to keep them mentally engaged.
Another idea is designing habitats with comfort in mind. Imagine spaces that mimic Earth-like environments with planet, natural light, and enough room to move around. It's not about just surviving, it's also about thriving in space.
That's a great point. Let's shift gears and talk about how all this could change what we know about the moon. If we start living there, what new things could we learn?
For one, the moon is like a time capsule. Its surface has been untouched for billions of years, so studying it could reveal secrets about the Earth's solar system, including how Earth was formed.
And don't forget about discovery of water at ice of the moon's poles. That's huge. Water is essential for life, but it also could be split into hydrogen and oxygen to make a rocket fuel. If the moon became a fueling station, it could make it easier to explore the rest of the solar system.
Plus, living on the moon would let us test technology for other planets like Mars. It's the perfect place to experiment with building habitats, growing food, and dealing with extreme conditions.
I think one of the coolest possibilities is putting a telescope on the moon. Without Earth's atmosphere in the way, we could get the clearest view of the universe ever. Imagine discovering new planets or learning more about dark matter and black holes.
And living on the moon can inspire people on Earth. It could show us what's possible when humanity works together. Imagine countries teaming up to build a lunar base, much like the International Space Station, but on a different world.
Before we wrap up, let's each share one thing that we're most excited about for humanity's future in space.
I'm excited about the innovation. The technology we create for living in space could help us solve the problems on Earth. like better renewable energy or ways to recycle more efficiently.
For me, it's about making humanity a multi-planet species. If something ever happens to Earth, having people on the moon or Mars can ensure our survival.
I love the idea of exploration. There's so much out there that we don't understand, and every step we take into space brings us closer to answering the questions about life in the universe.
That's it for today's episode. What do you think is humanity's biggest challenge or opportunity in space?
Thanks for joining us, and as always,
Keep dreaming big.